Hi all, I'm Professor Tina Good, and this mini video is on literary theories and the questions we ask when conducting literary analysis. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to show you a PowerPoint as we go through the various points. Okay, so literary theories have come about quite prolifically since the end of World War II and probably came to most notoriety in the 90s. You should not be intimidated by trying to understand all the literary theories and the jargon that goes along with it. What is important to understand is that each literary theory gives us a different set of questions to ask when trying to analyze literature. And each of the literary theories will lead us down a path of perhaps a different kind of understanding of the text. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the things that you may have done in the past and what is and is not literary analysis. First of all, there is what we call summary. And summary simply asks the question, what happened? And so this is where you would simply summarize the story or the movie or the film or a song. This is what's in the song. This is what happened. This happened and this happened and then this happened. Okay? An important skill for sure, but not what we do in the class. In this class, you should assume that your audience has read what you are talking about, and so you have no need to tell them what was happening from step to step. A review. This is very, very popular in our culture where we discuss a movie or a film or a book or a song or a vacuum cleaner or anything like that. And we say, did I like it? Why or why not? And we use the basis of our liking on a certain standard that has been set out there. And we do this all the time, whether it's movie reviews, whether it's Yelp reviews, Amazon reviews. This is something very pervasive in our culture. Indeed, an important skill and probably something you can even make money at, but not in the end what we are doing in this class. One thing we are doing in this class is interpretation, or what I call, what does it mean? You'll notice that I have separated out interpretation from literary analysis. While all interpretation may be a part of literary analysis, it is not synonymous with literary analysis. So with interpretation, we simply ask the question, what does it mean? And we try to find ways to figure out what does it mean by looking up words, by understanding context, by understanding connotation, by understanding metaphor. All of these kinds of things is what we use to try to figure out what something means. It does, however, presume that there is a singular meaning, which may or may not be true. Literary analysis, however, is using a set of questions to increase our understanding of literature and how it makes meaning within the text and how it connects to the world and individuals outside the text. So the following is going to be sort of looking at those sets of questions and how it sets us up for literary theory. Now, please note, this is only a primer on literary theory. And if you are an English major, this will get much more sophisticated as you progress with your studies. Okay, early on, say the 1800s and before, we used to look at literature as works of art in that they somehow reflected beauty, unity, and reflected somehow life. And the better it reflected life, the more we considered it art. The more it reflected beautiful language, beautiful images, rhythm, poetic verse, all of these kinds of things led to its beauty, if you will. And about the end of World War II, maybe even a little sooner than that, we began to look at it more objectively, not to only its relationship to how it reflects life and its beauty. Instead, we began to look at it as a cultural text. And we began to ask questions such as, how is race represented in the text? How is class represented in the text? How does gender affect the choices of the characters? And instead of looking at literature as how it reflects life, we look at it, how does it challenge certain social concepts by which we live by? How does it reflect and challenge the choices that the characters can make and the power that they have based on whether or not they are in or out of a dominant group? One question that we do not ask is, what did the author intend? First of all, it assumes that we can know what the author intended and that we can prove it. We cannot prove what the author intended. We can only prove what our understanding of the text is. Also, it assumes that the author's intent and the author's intended meaning is the one right meaning. And in fact, the author's meaning is only one possible understanding of the text. That your experience, that your history coming forward and analyzing the text is just as valid as the author's. So what kind of literary theories are we going to be looking at this semester? Well, we'll be looking at the traditional literary theories that you've probably already used. And that is where we look at, what does it mean? We use character analysis. We look closely at language. We look at metaphor. We look at these various strategies that you have used in the past to try to give meaning to the text. Another theory that we'll be looking at is genre theory, where we look at what are the rules organizing a particular genre, and how does the story that we're reading conform or go away from that genre, and how does understanding that help us inform an understanding of the text. Reader response. This is how are you, with your history, your connections, your biases, all of these things, informing an understanding of the text. What are you bringing to the understanding of the text based on your history? It is valid. And what we are looking for there is the disruptions, the moments of disruption, the moment of disruption within the text, and the moment when the text disrupts you. When something happens that you are surprised by, that you are angered by, that you have some sort of emotional response to, even if it is just confusion. New historicism assumes that we need to look outside of the text in order to understand what's inside of the text. So we look at what's going on historically, not only at the time that the story is set, but at the time that the story was written. What is going on historically, and how is that helping us understand the text? Again, as I said before, we look at race, class, gender. This covers a variety of literary theories, cultural theories, feminist theories, and it extends beyond race, class, and gender to sexuality, to religion, to able-bodiedness, to anything that might put somebody in either a dominant or marginalized group. And finally, what we will look for is the silences. We know that one of the most effective ways to oppress a group is to silence it. And so as literary analysts, this is what we will be looking for in text. Not only, therefore, are we looking what's on the page, but as what has been left off the page. One of the examples I often use is the idea of the medieval feast. If you read medieval literature, there is often a feast. The feast cannot be left out because it is a very important event, usually before a battle or to celebrate a victory, and so it must be left in. However, there is nothing discussing the preparation of the feast. Whereas we get detail after detail after detail about the battles, there is nothing about the preparation of the feast. And so we ask, why is there nothing about the preparation of the feast if the feast is so important? And if we dig a little deeper, we understand that it is the peasants that are preparing the feast. And this causes a cultural anxiety. And that is because the peasants, who are very likely oppressed, have the welfare of the warriors and the lords in their hands. And as you know, what they could easily do is poison that feast and take out the warriors and the lords. That is a huge cultural anxiety based on the class structure. and yet not one that they can get around. And so they silence it, and thus silence the voices of the peasants. So this is what we're going to be doing, and it does take some practice, but you will get it. Finally, one last point I want to make is the idea of what we call the postmodern narrative. Now, the postmodern narrative generally is said to take place after World War II, but honestly, we can go all the way back to Chaucer and find postmodern narratives. Characteristics that we look for is the idea of fragmentation, and that is the idea that instead of a linear narrative that goes first this happened, then this happened, then this happened, that you have fragments come in that tell the story. You might jump around a bit. You might start at the end and go and then go back to the beginning. You might have different people telling the story that come together and tell an overall narrative. So fragmentation. Paradox. It is this idea that there is inherent contradiction in life, and that we look at those moments of contradiction and we look at those moments of tension in order to get a deeper understanding of the text. And the unreliable narrator. Postmodern narrative, it's kind of assumed that every narrator is to one degree or another unreliable, because all of the storytellers will have their own biases and cannot be completely trusted. This is a little different than the unreliable narrator you may have been taught about before, but it still follows the same premise. Okay, so it is a response to modernism where we're looking for everything to have order and unity, and instead we're looking at tension and chaos in order to get a deeper meaning of the text. Okay, so understanding, we are not looking for one meaning. We are looking at several types of understandings, several pathways into literature that give us moments of understanding of our own experiences or perhaps experiences of others, and thereby increasing our empathy for others. I hope you find this video useful as we apply the questions produced by the various literary theories to our analysis of the text we are reading this semester. Good luck.